Hello, book burners, and welcome to another episode of Books Are Burning. I'm Mark Will, author, songwriter, and publisher in permanent exile, currently based on the island of Taiwan, but who knows for how long. I'm joined once again by my good friend and sometime co-author G.J. Villa. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
All right, well, we're continuing with our Rejoyce podcast series. We're rereading James Joyce's Ulysses. So far, we've made our way through 7 episodes, and today we will talk about the 8th episode. Do I have the numbers right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. We'll verify that in a second, but how's everything going for you? How are you enjoying the book? I know you've read a few episodes ahead of the one we're talking about today, so where are you and what's your overall feeling? This is your second time to read Ulysses. First time you read it was 30 years ago. What's it like? What's the experience of rejoicing?
It's been amazing. Taking my time, right? Going episode by episode, and really enjoying each episode as its own world, right? Obviously interconnected worlds, right? All these worlds that make up a day, right? In the life of this man. But no, absolutely amazing. I'm now through Sirens, right? And just enjoyed the musicality of that episode, right? With the barmaids and Bloom making it for another snack, right? Today we're going to talk about Lestrygonians, where he sits to eat, and Sirens, he goes back and has another snack, sees his blades boiling, and Joyce has these radical experiments with language, right? Language is music. So I'm up through there. You know, I got through the scene that's coming up, the library scene with Stephen and his Hamlet theory, right? A very dense but really rewarding passage, stylistically and thematically. And then after that is Wandering Rocks, right? Anyway, the point being, right, each episode is its own world, right? And there's so much to say about each one, and it's a thorough rejoicing. Going back and exploring it in this kind of depth and detail, having been through once, using some guides that I didn't use before. Fantastic.
All right, well, shall we get into it?
Let's do it.
Let's start the slideshow. Can you see that?
Yes, indeed.
There's Joyce looking as if he wants to say, "Feel as if I had been eaten and spewed." That, of course, is a quote from this episode we're going to focus on today, Lestrygonians, episode 8. We'll get into that more later, but I can certainly relate. Lately, I've felt eaten and spewed myself.
He looks appropriately dejected there, right? Just as his protagonist Bloom is in this episode.
Yeah. This is what? He's probably 45 or so?
Yeah,
probably soon after the publication of Ulysses at what, 40? Maybe he's 40 or so here, but he's got the eye patch, a little bow tie, and yeah, he looks eaten and spewed, actually.
Eaten and spewed. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, just a reminder, these are the texts we're using. G.J. Villa is using the double J. I always forget. Is that the Random House?
The Random House.
The Random House. I'm using the Modern Library quote, and actually the cover has a photo from what looks like the same session as the eaten and spewed photo. Eye patch, bow tie. Joyce the Pirate. All right, and so here's an update on what my text actually looks like at this point. It's literally falling apart at the seams. This is, if you open to the Circe section, you can see where all the pages have been ripped off. I mean, not literally ripped off, but they've fallen off from the spine of my book. So
your book has been eaten and spewed itself.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, if you look at mine is also in a state of, deterioration. So, yeah, eaten and spewed texts.
Well worn. I guess that's the sign of a good book, It's been read multiple times and underlined, highlighted, So
Defaced, defamed. That's right.
defaced.
All those things.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. You got to use it or lose it. All right. So a reminder, we're in the middle of the text. Episodes 4 through 15 are called the Odyssey or Ulysses section. That's the part that begins with that big letter M. And today we're on episode 8, known as Lestrygonians. Here's a little cartoon from I think that's from the Blooms and Barnacles website. And we're calling this episode Eat or Be Eaten at your suggestion. That's one of the memorable phrases in episode 8. So those that are watching can see Ulysses or one of his men being eaten by a green monster. It says Greek food, Lestrygonian style. Maybe we can talk about that Greek connection in a minute. I just wanted to point out that, as I told you in WhatsApp, Lestrygonians has a special place in my heart. I realize in retrospect that the first exposure I ever had to Ulysses was an excerpt from this very episode in my copy of the Norton Anthology. Of course, it wasn't the whole thing. You know how, the Norton Anthology, when it includes excerpts from a longer work, it's not continuous. It's like chopped up, very fragmentary. So they had my edition of the Norton Anthology had a fairly large excerpt from Lestrygonians. And as I say here, it is what inspired me to read the whole novel by myself as an undergrad. That was the first time I read it. But I remembered it when rereading Lestrygonians this time, like in particular the ending, where he says safe when he's trying to avoid Boylan. At the time, I had no idea what he was on about. Bloom, that is, or Joyce,
So
or both.
when we read it together 30 years ago, I think you had already read it once on your own, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yeah, I read it. I mean, again, I had read the excerpt. I mean, by that time, we had both read Portrait of the Artist as a young man. I'd probably read it 2 or 3 times. You probably read it more than me. You've read Portrait many times over the years, right? How many?
Yeah.
10?
Probably at least half a dozen, if not
Yeah.
more. I just revisited it last year.
Yeah.
By the way, audiobook recommendation. The Colin Firth is not
Colin
Firth.
Farrell.
Colin Farrell, excuse me, is just fantastic. But yeah, I tend to go back to it every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what inspired me to venture out on my own and read the whole thing, which, I did at age, I don't know, 18, 19. Was I 20?
Well, these musings are kind of appropriate because this is exactly the sort of ruminations that Bloom has in this chapter. The difference, though, with Bloom is that he's in a very dejected state of mind for much of it. Thoughts are churning and so on. Thoughts are eating each other. Yeah.
Eating each other. That is a good way to put it. All right, what happens in this episode? I thought we could just kind of reconstruct the plot through dialogue and conversation.
Sure.
I mean, again, there are no big dramatic events necessarily. Bloom is wandering around Dublin. He sees a girl selling pineapple rock, lemon plat, butterscotch. A YMCA young man hands him a throwaway, and he throws away the throwaway into the Liffey.
Right.
And he also buys some bread or cake from a woman on the street, and he feeds the gulls. I'll let you take it from there. What else happens?
Well, he's wandering. He's dodging acquaintances. He runs into a woman, Miss Breen, who might have been an old flame, right? And we see that's a great scene where we see how Bloom kind of knows how to talk to women here, right? He reads with people, not just women, but in this case, women, very very well. Um, uh, and he goes into eventually he's moving to lunchtime, right? His thoughts are absolutely kind of glooming and churning, and he walks into, what is the name of the place he walks into?
Well, the first place he goes to is called Burton's Restaurant.
That's right.
So here we have like a false start, right? We think, okay, this episode is lunch or the lunch, right? He's going to Burton's, but nope.
Right.
He's disgusted by the dirty eaters he sees there, and then he says,
one of the sort of many images of consumption that sort of goes back to the Homer episode, right? Lestrygonians, the monsters, the men. It's a real, we'll certainly be talking about it. It's a very graphic and disturbing depiction of men masticating and so on, right? Swilling, etc. So yeah, he gets there, and Bloom is funny in that scene, right? He looks around, and to sort of save face, he pretends like he's looking around to see if he can find the person he's looking for, and he can't find that person, right? So he puts on this quick, no one's, but because his urge is to get the fuck out of there. I mean, he is revolted, right? That's interesting reaction. He has to get out. He's just disgusted by it all. Anyway, I think he might have another encounter on the street, but then he ends up finally eating at Davy Byrne's pub. I think he orders gorgonzola cheese, a glass of Burgundy, and we see Bloom from his perspective as well as the pub owner's perspective and Nosy Flynn, right? Is that about it, or is there something after that scene? He eats there. Oh yeah. Oh, how can I forget? Anyway, he wanders some more, and he actually runs into fucking Blazes Boylan, right? The antagonist who is en route in his own odyssey of a day to the inevitability of Molly's bed, and he has a panic attack, right? At the end, and has to flee. So it's reflects parts of the Odyssey. We'll talk about that, but yeah, it's pretty gripping actually overall. And is there anything else I'm overlooking?
Well, there's some other characters that he encounters. We can get to them in a moment, but I would just point out that panic attack and that encounter with Boylan takes place by the library, which is
right, the library.
The next episode, or the scene of the next episode, and it's actually a library and museum, right? Like the National Museum has a library, so it's both. Right. We call it the library, but it's both a library and a museum. And we went there. We went there in 2013.
That's right. All
right. So
and before we go on, we may as well talk about the Odyssey parallel, right? So in the Odyssey, Odysseus lands upon the Isle of comes into a cove, as he does many times. They go in to explore who are the beings, who are the mortals who live here, right? Well, it's the Lestrygonians, who turn out to be these sort of gigantic men, cannibalistic men who chase Odysseus and his men back to the ships. Odysseus is, I think, parked his ship slightly outside the cove. All the other ships are in the cove. So at the end of the episode, Odysseus loses all of his men and all these ships other than his own ship with his own men. And so at the end of this episode, there is an escape, just as at the end of Lestrygonians. Bloom himself, after the panic attack with Boylan, escapes and feels safe there by the library. So
well, and also he escapes Burton's restaurant. That could be another parallel.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple of escapes. You're right. Absolutely right. In terms of the sort of epic pattern of the hero on this odyssey, right? Evading dangers, right? Escapes and so on. So yes, indeed.
Maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but in the Odyssey, in Homer's Odyssey, that episode is not a major one, is it?
No,
the Lestrygonians. No. It's quite brief.
It's one of those 2-pagers, right?
Yeah,
it's a kind of interlude. It's sort of like the Aeolus. That's not a major episode in the Odyssey, the way that the Cyclops is, right? We'll get to the Cyclops chapter,
Right.
right?
Or
So yeah, it's one of
Circe or
those. Sometimes he'll
Calypso.
just take a small little bit, right? The Wandering Rocks, right, which is upcoming, is just Circe is talking to Odysseus. Avoid the Wandering Rocks. You're not going to make it through. You're going to have to go this other way by Scylla and Charybdis, and even then you're going to lose some men, right? So
And
again,
it's not an episode at all. It's basically just a phrase that Joyce, he takes a phrase from Homer and then makes a whole episode
yeah,
out of
Wandering
it.
Rocks is the route that Ulysses does not take, right? So yeah, Joyce is very interesting and crafty the way he's picking these different episodes to suit his own needs.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
All right. Well, here's the Gilbert Lanati Will schema. Of course, Stuart Gilbert has the most famous schema, very simple. Joyce sent an acquaintance named Lanati sometimes it's contradictory or supplementary, more complicated, and then I tweak it a little bit. But the scene is lunch, sometimes called the lunch, which is interesting because, we got the graveyard, the bath, and so on. These are actual places, but the lunch, is it like the luncheon? Are we talking about Davy Burns in particular? I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. The lunch hour, right? The time when men slow down and eat, right? So we have two lunch locations, Burton's and Davy Burns.
All right, so the hour is 1 p.m. Of course, it's still June 16th, 1904. I'll let you take it from here. What's the organ?
The organ is esophagus. The architecture, the color, blood color. I don't quite understand that. I didn't know
that's Gilbert says there's no color. I got that from Lenati. I'm trying to give every episode some color.
Gotcha.
As opposed to the red of Hades, which was, the previous episode. Apparently, Joyce told Lenati that the color of Lestrygonians was blood color.
Okay.
So it's a darker red.
All right. Fair enough. I'll keep that in mind. Symbol, constables, blood sacrifice, food, shame. Technique, peristaltic, and then correspondence is hunger equals antiphates. Food is the decoy, teeth, Lestrygonians. And let me
do you understand those correspondences?
Not all of them. No, I'm not sure I need to either. But maybe we'll talk about them as we
What's
go
the decoy in terms of Homer's
I'm not
Odyssey?
Sure that's what I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
Antiphates.
Maybe for next time we can have Antiphates is one of the brute. I think that's the chief of the Lestrygonians, right?
Okay.
The brute who orders all his men down to swoop upon and start killing Odysseus's men.
Fates is probably related to speaking, so he's the one who doesn't talk, or he's opposed to talking.
That makes sense because this is the monstrous king of the Lestrygonians. When Odysseus's men get there, there's no diplomacy or talking, right? They just start getting devoured.
Right. Yeah, right.
It's interesting that two of the episodes, this one and the Cyclops, involve cannibals or cannibalistic monsters. But I think we can talk about that more maybe when we get to the Cyclops.
I'll have to look up the etymology of Lestrygonians. I didn't bother to do that. Usually these Greek names have some kind of meaning. But I didn't check on that.
Sounds good.
Show notes. Etymology of Lestrygonians. Let's write that down. All right. Anyway, if you're watching our ugly mugs on YouTube or wherever, you can see this diagram of the esophagus, which I always thought it was just like in the stomach. Apparently, the esophagus goes all the way to the mouth. Did you know that?
I do now.
I mean, it's that tract from the mouth all the way down to the stomach.
Right.
Phag, PH, A-G is eat, right? So S-O into the eating tract or something like that. So
All right.
a very graphic representation there. So here's the scene: the lunch or lunch. I included a photograph of Davy Burns because that's where the main action, such as it is, takes place. And Brother John asked me, "Did y'all go to Davy Burns in 2013?" And I thought, I'm pretty sure we did. I think we were
did.
there on
We sat-
Bloomsday. And when I saw this picture, I'm like, yes, we were right there. We sat outside on
We
that.
sat outside.
What
We
is
sat
that?
outside.
A patio?
At one point, we might have gone inside and had another drink inside. But I
Yeah,
know we were there.
or at least to visit
Pay, whatever.
the restroom, just look around. But I remember that very clearly. We were sitting outside Bloomsday afternoon, had a drink there. We may or may not have gone inside. I remember the cursive name, on the awning there. Pretty nice spot.
It was very nice. That was a fantastic day.
Yeah. So we went there. You can go too. All right, so let's talk about the characters. There's some others that we didn't mention here. If you're watching the slideshow, you can see a picture of Stephen Ray as Bloom. Had you heard about this movie? 2003?
Vaguely a long time ago, but I hadn't been reminded of it in a while. So it's like, oh yeah, I think I remember hearing that about.
Stephen Ray is a pretty big deal. He was in The Crying Game, and I mean, he's a pretty well-known Irish actor, So this was I guess this was a pretty large-scale Irish production. I had never heard of it until I did like an image search, and this popped up. So that might be worth watching. I can imagine him being a pretty good Bloom.
Oh, definitely. I think maybe when I'm done with the Odyssey, I'll check out the movie and see if I feel like he embodies at least the character, right? So,
the Odyssey, or are you rereading that?
Excuse me. No. Excuse me.
Ulysses.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think either of us ever made it through the Joseph Strick version. It's not that compelling.
No.
We've seen excerpts, of course, but I don't think I've watched the whole thing.
Certainly that picture of Stephen Ray in his little Bloom hat mustache, right?
He looks the part, as they say.
He looks the part, for sure.
All right, so here are some of the people that Bloom encounters. The H-E-L-Y and S. How would we describe these guys? Each one of them is wearing a letter, right? Wisdom Heelys.
They're a wandering advertisement, right?
Right.
They've been paid to wander around all day, and each man has his own letter, right, to spell out Heelys.
Yeah. So, and of course, Bloom worked for them at one time. We'll get into that later. You mentioned Mrs. Breen. There's also her husband, Dennis Breen. Mina Purefoy is mentioned in passing. She doesn't appear, but she'll be important later. Go ahead.
She's the one in labor, right?
Right.
And Bloom in several episodes is thinking sympathetically about her, and that's, of course, Oxen in the Sun later on.
What were you going to say about Breen?
We'll talk about her when we get to her. But essentially, she's on stage. She and Bloom have an exchange. Her husband, we only see a glimpse of him at the end. He's more talked about than participating in the scene.
Yeah, and also Cashel Boyle O'Connor. What's his name? Fitzmaurice something Farrell. He makes an appearance too.
The wandering eccentric.
Yep.
Based on a real person, as many of these were, of course.
Constables, that's one of the symbols. And they appear very briefly, so it's interesting that they're
depicted
symbol.
As a mass, right? And so on, yeah.
I mean, what's the connection there? Why are they a symbol?
They're going to lunch too, I think. And Bloom is thinking these dark thoughts about the way we all consume things and so on.
I mean, the Heelys guys constitute a group as well. So are they like stand-ins for the Lestrygonians or something? Like just a pack of ravenous, thoughtless, unthinking, uncommunicative brutes or something?
Well, the Constables, I think, are more associated with that maybe than the Heelys, but we'll definitely take a look.
One of the Heelys guys is munching on a piece of bread. I remember that.
Okay. All right.
John, is it Howard or Henry Parnell, the brother of the
The
great
great
Parnell,
man.
Charles Parnell? He appears. A.E. makes his first appearance. This is the poet George Russell, also a mystic and a painter, friend of Yeats. Somewhat ironically portrayed here and elsewhere in the novel.
He will appear again in the upcoming scene in the
Yep,
library. He's
yep.
a leading Irish intellectual, a theosophist, right, with the
Mm-hmm.
theosophical sort of beliefs and so on.
Like Yeats.
Exactly.
I get the feeling that, I don't know, we can talk about that more later, but maybe we should think about what does Joyce think about these older contemporaries, Yeats, A.E. He parodies them in a way, but is there a grudging admiration? I don't know. We can think about that. There's a young woman with A.E. It may or may not be Lizzie Twig. Bloom thinks it might be. I think did she respond to his ad?
I think Lizzie Twig is associated with AE. I think she is one of
Okay.
the. She's sort of there as he's riding by on his bike, and she's with him.
Yeah, but he's not sure. Bloom is not sure it's her. I think. He's not
Yeah,
sure.
perhaps not.
But why does he know the name? Because I think a Lizzie Twig responded
Oh,
to his ad just like, you know, what's her name? Martha
mm-hmm,
responded
mm-hmm.
to the
Yeah.
ad. I think he got several responses, and there may
Oh,
have
he
been a
did. He
Lizzie
did.
That
That comes out too, right?
Yeah, and
Crafty Bloom has had several.
so he's thinking to himself, of course, it's internal monologue, stream of consciousness, but he says, my literary efforts have had the good fortune to interest Mr. George Russell. So it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like
Okay.
she said that in her response to, you know, make her a more attractive candidate or whatever for
Interesting.
the position he's
The fictional
supposedly
position that he's supposedly, yeah, exactly.
supposedly
Uh,
looking to fill.
we have Nosy Flynn and Davy Byrne. I love both of those portraits.
Yeah.
They're both at the place where at Davy Byrne's, where Bloom eventually finds a little bit of solace. Right, he slows down and has his gorgonzola sandwich.
Davy Byrne's a very interesting character.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
sympathetic.
Nosy Flynn is too, but less. I mean, he's more comical.
Right, right, right.
Leonard Lyons and Rochford enter Davy Byrne's later. Lyons, of course, Bantam Lyons had been given the throwaway tip, right?
Right, 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 right.
So
We'll hear
he's to
more
be
about
remembered.
Rochford in the Wandering Rocks episode, where he's
Mm.
helping someone with a legal issue or something like that.
Mm. Blazes Boylan, we mentioned him before. And then there's the blind stripling. He doesn't really have a name, but he's referred to as the blind stripling.
And he appears again, both in Wandering Rocks and
Yep.
Sirens, right?
Uh-huh.
So a lot of
Yep.
these little characters who just pop in for a second, right? You see him
Hmm.
again here, you see him again there.
And I think he's a piano tuner. I think he's on his way to tune a piano.
That's right.
You
At
said
the Ormond
something.
Bar.
You said something earlier I wanted to ask you about, but now I've forgotten. It seemed like there was something you read in one of your guides. Let me go back and see if. Nope. Okay, never mind. All right, so the technique is peristaltic prose. This is from ulyssesguide.com. In digestion, peristalsis refers to the intestinal muscles contracting and relaxing to push food along. Joyce's style in Lestrygonians employs this concept as Bloom moves in starts and stops through the belly of downtown Dublin. So stylistically, Like, what is it? I mean, is he just taking the piss? He says, "Oh, it's peristaltic prose. That's the
Well, I
technique."
think for me, it really comes across in Bloom's churning thoughts, and
Churning.
his thoughts are in his the language is fragmented, a little bit more fragmented than before, right?
Okay.
And then he um, uh, keeps circling back to some of the things that are haunting him, right? So there's this sort of
Okay.
like, going back and churning again on these awful thoughts and so on,
Digesting.
digesting. He's thinking about mortality. He's thinking about the inevitability of being cuckolded by Molly. He's thinking, uh, um, we'll look at him. I mean, there's just a bunch of gloomy thoughts. So for
There's
me,
a
the
lot of
prose,
there's a lot of reference to like pain, and not pain, but discomfort in the gut.
right, right,
There's also
right.
the dyspepsia. I just thought of it. One of those three guys in Davy Burns is taking like soda water
Hmm.
for his dyspepsia,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Bloom is feeling like it's like sometimes I get this too when I feel anxious. There's like a uh an uneasiness in my solar plexus, my gut,
right, right.
uh and he definitely seems to be feeling the same thing. So maybe there's something to it on the psychological plane. It's equivalent to a kind of brooding,
Yeah.
which could have psychosomatic effects like in the stomach
And
region.
that's mirrored in what the language is often doing too. So just as Bloom's thoughts are starting and stopping and recircling,
Mm.
um, Joyce's language is starting and stopping and recircling and so on. So
Okay, so maybe it's legit. Peristaltic prose, it's a real
peristaltic
thing.
prose.
It's a real thing. All right, we'll start with Caramel Crunch. That's you.
All right,
I
caramel
gave you that
crunch.
little name. You could
Would
have
it? Would
been
it?
Pineapple Rock, or I don't know, Lemon Plat,
Yeah,
Butterscotch. Maybe you should have been Butterscotch, but I I thought I'd let you be Caramel Crunch. If you don't like it, you can change it
I'm
later.
fine being caramel crunch.
All right.
I suppose you have a moniker as well, or is that going
I'm
to be a
Vanilla
surprise?
Fudge. Vanilla
Vanilla
Fudge.
fudge. All
Yeah.
right, all right, uh,
All right.
all right. Well, just diving in, right? It's lunch hour. It's a gloomy time of day, and I thought this line just jumps out as almost like the epitome um, uh, of the episode. This is the
Mm,
very worst hour of day. Vitality, dull, gloomy. Hate this hour. Feel as if I had been eaten and spewed. So
so great.
poor Bloom there is, and on a general level, if you think of the day as an odyssey, and each of us are oftentimes doing similar, things every day if we're going to work and going out in the world and coming back home and so on, right? The middle of the day can sometimes suck, right? It's lunch hour, you're tired, you still have more work to do, you still have other things to accomplish before the you know pilgrimage of the day is done. So um, uh, definitely, I think he's tapping into something that's probably pretty universal. Anyway, Bloom is meditating on the futility of time and existence and identity. Right. The passages are you know kind of fatalistic, right? I would say, right. Let me just pull up one quick bit here from that passage. That's on 262, I think, right? No, 162, right? Uh, I'll come back to that, but there's also moments in this chapter that are echoing some of the same gloomy thoughts from Hades, right? So some of that leftover darkness from Hades is sort of spilling over here.
Hmm.
And then we just talked about the peristaltic technique, right? In this episode, Bloom, at least a couple of times, talks about the flow of language. Um, um, and the flow of language in this chapter is kind of clogged up, broken up, and then pushed through Bloom's consciousness, right? So we have all these fragments and repetitions and obsessions and so on, right?
Hmm.
So that was my first sort of bigger sort of noticings, right? The feel of the chapter, right, and the way that the prose is reflecting that, right? Uh, uh, Here's just one quick passage from that page 162 when he thinks about Dignam carted off. Mina Porphyry, swollen belly on a bed, groaning to have a child tugged out of her. One born every second somewhere, others dying every second. Since I fed the birds 5 minutes, 300 kicked the bucket. Other 300 born, washing the blood off. All are washed in the blood of the Lamb, bawling, Ma! City full passing away, other city full coming, passing away too. Other coming on, passing on. Houses, lines of houses, streets, miles of pavements, piled up bricks, stones. You can hear the kind of staccato feel of some of those lists he's making, and just thinking about the rise and fall of things and the uselessness and emptiness of it all. So very, very gloomy, right? And then we get he starts thinking about his own life, right? And we're back to the kind of original trauma, Rudy's death, right, from 11 years ago, and its effects. So I'll just read this passage here. He's thinking about his past. I was happier then, or was that I, or am I now I? 28 I was. She was 23 when we left Lombard Street West. Something changed. Could never like it again after Rudy. Can't bring back time like holding water in your hand. Would you go back to then? Just beginning then. Would you? Are you not happy in your home, you poor naughty little boy? Wants to sew buttons for me. I must answer right in the library. A remarkable passage. I love the way you're in the past. You're thinking about, we learned something important here, right? Could never like it again after Rudy, right?
That's what I was going to say.
It's like, holy shit. So for, we know that he is going to get cuckolded later. He's accepting that. He and Molly, right, their sexual intimacy has been dead for 11 years.
So, okay, so yeah, I was going to ask that we do the math. So he was 28 then, she was 23. So now
he's 39.
He's 39 and she's 34.
Right.
Okay. So yeah, 11 years sexless marriage.
Right.
That's rough.
And then, interestingly, he's in that dark place, and then he sort of slyly, his mind just goes, "Are you not happy in your home, you poor little naughty boy?" That's from Martha's letter, right?
Yeah.
And this is, one of the ways that he escapes or distracts himself from the pain of what's happened with him and Molly, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's carved out this side thing that probably is just going to stay epistolary, right? I think, but anyway. So yeah, passage of time. Original trauma, we're learning something important, etc.
All right. Carry on, Caramel Crunch.
Bloom's newspaper ad, right? In other words, we learn here about what he posted to get that response from Martha, right, in a previous episode. Enough bother wading through 44 of them. Wanted smart lady typist to aid gentleman in literary work. So
there it is, yeah. I think that's what the Lizzie Twigg character responded to, right? That's why she said, "Oh, my literary efforts had the good fortune of attracting the attention of Mr. George Russell."
So two things here for me. He got 44 responses, right? So he has got, what we have seen from Martha is just the most promising one in terms of something that could become salacious or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he posted was this: wanted smart lady typist to aid gentlemen in literary work. I love that because for a couple of reasons, right? Bloom is kind of this cultured man in his own way, but this is a lie. But on a meta level, this is also sort of like almost Joyce at play, right? He is the gentleman engaging in this literary work and so on, right?
Or you can imagine someone like Bukowski placing an ad, to attract women with whom he could do research,
Right, exactly.
So anyway, maybe there is something literary about it, but also there's an ulterior motive.
Exactly.
I mean, that's actually a good idea. I'm going to have to note that down. Wanted smart lady typist to aid gentlemen in literary work. File that under,
Good luck.
Maybe
You'll have to
later.
let us know if there's any fruit to that or not.
Yeah. And he got, in the days of social media, he would have gotten 44 likes. Thumbs up, Bloom.
But going on with Bloom, so he's posted these ads. Then we see this great encounter with Miss Breen, and it's suggested that they might have had a relationship, some kind of in the past, or were interested in each other. Obviously, they went their separate ways. Bloom is married. Miss Breen is married.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Where did you get that idea? Is that from one of the guides, or is that just your thought?
I think it's suggested in the language here, and I think perhaps the Ulysses guide mentions it as a possibility. But regardless, right? He encounters her, right? They ask about each other's spouses, and Bloom shows himself to be pretty suave here, right? He's talking to her initially, and then he says they're exchanging pleasantries, right, etc. How are you, etc. Then it thinks to himself, may as well get her sympathy. And he says, Dignam, Mr. Bloom said, an old friend of mine, right? He died quite suddenly, poor fellow. She's just asked him, oh, you're all in black, right? Is everything okay? And right. So here he goes in that direction, gets her sympathy, right? And then, when they're talking about poor Dignam has passed, right? He thinks to himself, now that's quite enough about that. Just quietly. Husband. He's like, okay, I'm going to shift gears now.
Right.
I'm going to ask about her husband, right?
Yeah.
And then when she starts talking about her husband, who's engaged in this ridiculous litigation, right?
Or is it?
Right, or is it?
He
thinks to himself as he's listening to her, let her speak. Look straight in her eyes. I believe you. Trust me.
Yeah, so, that's great.
Hey, Bloom, because you sometimes, how did Bloom end up with Molly? Because Molly, men are continually talking about her and how hot she is and her body and so on. That's something that recurs throughout the book. And I think this kind of...
What did she marry a coon like him for, as John Henry Menton said?
Exactly.
Well, he talked her out of her panties, apparently.
Bloom's got game, basically, right?
He's got game.
Even though right now he is not, pursuing sexual encounter, or maybe he is, right? Here he is, being pretty suave with Miss Breen.
He's got game, but he's lost frame.
That's right. We also see how sympathetic Bloom is, right? On the one hand, he's suave, etc., and he's also sympathetic. He quickly sees Dilly Daedalus, Stephen's sister, and he starts thinking about Catholic women and their nonstop birthing, right? And how horrible it is. It's actually a really funny line here, right? He says he's talking about the state of the Daedalus family.
Yeah.
He's thinking about Simon, and he says 15 children he had, birth every year almost. That's in their theology, or the priest won't give the poor woman the confession, the absolution. Increase and multiply. Did you ever hear such an idea? Eat you out of house and home. No families themselves to feed. Living on the fat of the land. Okay, so...
that reminds us of the anti-clericalism of, what was it, Lotus?
Right.
Lotus eaters.
Exactly. And here, right, this is another image of being eaten, right? This profligate procreation ends up eating a family from the inside. They're destitute, etc. Bloom would be for birth control, of course, which would be heretical to Catholics of the day, right? Anyhow, we also see him while he's talking to Miss Breen. They both sort of mention Miss Purifoy, who's currently in labor. And we will get to that scene later on, right? This long labor. Bloom thinks to himself, poor Miss Purifoy, poor thing. Then having to give the breast year after year, all hours of the night, right? So again, Bloom is sympathetic to women in the way that Irish women in particular are constantly procreating, right? Later, he runs into a blind stripling, right? And Bloom helps him across the street. Bloom imagines what it's like to be blind, right? So there's some really beautiful passages there. So, Joyce just continues to really develop his hero in wonderful ways, I think.
It's funny that he first misremembers her name, right? He says, do you ever see anything of Mrs. Beaufoy? Mr. Bloom asked. Mina Purefoy, she said. There are always these misunderstandings and misrememberings of names and important details. I mean, of course, we've already talked about the throwaway. There's another example we'll talk about later. But
Right.
I mean, what does he say? He's immediately after that. He says, Philip Beaufoy, I was thinking, right? So
Right.
again, just a very realistic detail, the way we...
Was Philip Beaufoy one of the writers that Molly was reading earlier, or one of
could
those cheap
be. He goes
romances?
on to say, Philip Beaufoy, I was thinking, Playgoers Club, Matcham often thinks of the master stroke. Did I pull the chain? Yes, the
Oh
last
yeah,
act.
yeah. That was
So he's
when he was
thinking back
taking
to, being in the outhouse or the Jacks or the
while he was
Jakes.
reading that bit, right? I think
Yeah.
the author might have been Philip.
Philip Beaufoy, yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right.
And
All
so
right.
he,
Awesome.
yeah. And then he thinks, oh, did I flush, basically?
That's right.
Did I
That's
pull
right.
the
That's right.
chain? The last act.
Right. Right.
Hilarious.
Amazing how Joyce is stitching these episodes together, right?
Yeah, right.
And that's exactly what someone might think, right? The names sound alike, and then your mind's going to go to that, right? Good stuff. So sympathetic Bloom. We also have finally some outsiders who are sympathetic and who think kindly about Bloom, because we have seen him. We've already talked in earlier podcasts. In Hades, for example, how he's mistreated by the men, right? In Aeolus, a lot of times he's ignored, right?
Yep.
This is our epic hero, but here,
Dissed.
Dissed, exactly. Nosy Flynn and Davy Byrne have some really nice things to say about him, right? At one point, Byrne says, decent, quiet man he is. I often saw him in here, and I never once saw him, over the line. He's a safe man, I'd say. Never over the line. In other words, he's not getting drunk like all those other
Right.
Irishmen are, right?
Right.
And safe, I think he means here safe, like safe, sane, dependable, reliable, right? Solid, etc. So
I think this may be why I like Davy Byrne so much, because he's the first. I mean, he himself seems to be a decent, quiet man. You can't imagine Davy Byrne himself getting drunk and disorderly, right? He
right.
seems to be a safe man as well.
Yep.
And he recognizes that in Bloom. So
Nosy Flynn, who's kind of a comic character, but kind of kindly, he says about Bloom, responding to Flynn, God Almighty couldn't make him drunk. Slips off when the fun gets too hot, right? So yeah, I mean, when things get too hot, he gets the hell out of there, right? When people are getting too drunk and rowdy, he's the first to leave. Just as he leaves at Burton's, right? When he walks into Burton's and has to get out of there, right? Flynn also says about him, he has been known to put his hand down too to help a fellow. Give the devil his due. Oh, Bloom has his good points. So
someone else pointed that out too. Like he put down money for the children of Dignam.
That comes up later also.
Who pointed it out? Martin Cunningham? Someone gave him credit for that.
Either in Wandering Rocks or maybe both in Wandering Rocks and what's the one after that we were just talking about? The musical one. Sirens. Anyway, yes, that's confirmed later that he actually did put money down. Others have pledged money, right? And we learned later that Bloom actually not only pledged, but already put it down.
He already put it down, right?
So again, we get, we got this kind of kinky side of Bloom. He's also a cuckold. He's a pessimist. I love the way that Joyce is exploring the way that identity, that elusive thing identity is both about who we are and what we do, but what others also think of us counts, right? And we have these outsider perspectives that are highlighting things that need to be highlighted about this very full everyman hero, if you will.
Give the devil his due. That's a great line.
That's right.
If Bloom is a kind of messiah figure, he can also be the Antichrist,
Yeah, or, right, I mean, as he's sort of reviled for being a Jew with the anti-Semitism of the day, right, here's a Jew who is a solid, sane, dependable man, right, who helps a fellow when he's down, etc. He's better morally than most of his Christian countrymen.
Yeah, more Christian than the Christians,
exactly.
As is often the case.
That's right. And then we have one of the horrific scenes, right? Which kind of graphically reflects the Lestrygonian episodes in the Odyssey, the scene of devouring. He first stops into Burton's restaurant, and we get a couple of pages where we just see these masticating men, right? We to me, the episode's motto here, eat or be eaten, kill, kill. That's Bloom when he's like just looking at revulsion upon all these men, right? And that he seems to be suggesting that's look at them in this frenzied state, right? And that brought to mind a line from Aeolus: "Justice it means, but it's everybody eating everyone else. That's what life is, after all." And here, that throwaway line in Aeolus, right, is given sort of dramatic intensity in these 2 pages where he watches these men. There's moments where Bloom comes off as legitimately, right, a kind of germaphobe, given the revulsion he's seeing. He thinks about animals being slaughtered, right, and the way that we consume all of these animals.
More on that later.
There's echoes of Homer's Hades, right? In Homer's Hades, when Odysseus goes down to interact with the dead, who are disembodied spirits, he has to feed them. They have to drink blood. They have to, right? And so here we have this line: "Blood always needed, insidious, lick it up, smoking hot, thick, sugary, famished ghosts."
Hungry ghosts.
Hungry ghosts. Just a tiny bit more of these pages, we get stuff like this. He walks in, and here are his thoughts. And notice how they're kind of like choppy, broken up. He's taking these impressions of smells of men. His gorge rose, spat and sawdust, sweetish, warmish cigarette smoke, reek of plug, spilt beer, men's berry piss, the stale of ferment. Beery, yes, men's beery piss. Beery piss, the stale of ferment, right? Here's one more bit. That fellow ramming a knife full of cabbage down as if his life depended on it. Good stroke. Gives me the fidgets to look. Safer to eat from his 3 hands. Tear it limb from limb. Anyway, so this is where he's there, and he wants to flee, but then Bloom, as we talked about earlier, he sort of looks around and pretends like he's looking for someone, but doesn't find that someone and walks out. But his impulse is to flee, and he does, right? So this is, I guess, this kind of mock heroic sort of echo of the original, right, where the hero evades danger and slyly gets out the door.
Yeah.
There is, amid all of his gloominess, there's also this beautiful passage where he kissed Molly on Ben Howth, right? This kind of peninsular bit of strip of land, beautiful in Ireland, right? And it's a passage we should keep in mind when we get to the end of Molly's monologue, because the book is going to end, right? At this very scene, at this very moment, right? So this is a definitely an important moment to not forget, right? And we get some images like this. Ravished over her I lay, full lips, full open, kissed her mouth, yum. Softly she gave me in my mouth the seed cake, warm and chewed. Mawkish pulp her mouth had mumbled, sweet and sour with spittle. Joy, I ate it. Joy, young life, her lips that gave me point, pouting, soft, warm, sticky gum jelly lips, flowers her eyes were, take me, willing eyes. Later on, I was kissed, she kissed me, all yielding, she tossed my hair. Kissed, she kissed me. So here's this sort of romantic kiss, this moment of union. And then right after that, he says, me and me now. So like that was me in my moment when I was so carried by this tide of erotic bliss and happiness. And now look at me, look at where I am now, right?
Yeah.
So beautiful passage, though, just absolutely beautiful. I just sampled a little bit of it, but Molly will also think of this passage, this moment too, later.
Well, and we should note that lovemaking is associated with food and eating and the sharing of food, right? They've got the cake that they're transferring from one mouth to the other.
And it's kind of this almost maternal image of almost like a mother bird feeding her young or something like that, right? Uh, but she's feeding him, right? He is sort of, there's almost something maternal in that moment, right? Yeah, gorgeous, good stuff. Ben Houth. There are also some important coincidences, and the sort of recurring importance of coincidence is something that is happening again and again, right? We have Parnell's brother, again, the great man Parnell, dead now. His brother runs into him. He also runs into or sees A.E., the Theosophist. And here's an important line, right? He noticed that, I think, A.E., and there he is too. Now that's really a coincidence. Second time. Coming events cast their shadows before.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
think that's definitely a the novel is reminding us this is a way to really read the novel, right? Keep in mind the way in coming events cast their shadows before.
I mean, that's literally foreshadowing.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, it works in reverse too, right? They're these things we've been calling callbacks or
Callbacks.
I don't know, flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So that yeah, it goes forwards in time and backwards in time.
Right. So coincidences, as I mentioned. We can go to the next slide. I'll just jump down to another important thing for me was this ongoing torment. Blaze's Boylan, right? He's thinking about Boylan. He's the thoughts of his inevitably being cucked, right, are kind of tormenting him throughout this in a kind of intense way, right, in keeping with the chapter and its gloominess, right? And at one point, he's thinking about a doctor who takes care of people who might have the clap, right? Etc.
Gonorrhea.
Exactly. And then he says some chap with a dose burning him. If he, no, I don't believe it. He wouldn't, surely. No. So here, this thought just comes to him as thoughts come to us. And he's like, what if Boylan has the clap and passes that along the
Is he gonna give my
right?
wife an STD?
Exactly. Later in the episode, he has this sudden memory of Boylan and Molly touching fingers and communicating by touch. When they were all three together, he's like, oh yeah, there was that one time they kind of slyly were sort of grazing each other, right, etc. Where is it? He, the other side of her, elbow, arm, touch, fingers, asking, yes. There's a little bit more there, but and then later at the end of the episode, he runs into Boylan, and he has his panic attack and has to flee, right, because he's so overcome. He ends up going to the library, as you said, right. At 2 points, he sort of references my heart, right, and he rushes off, right. So the antagonist that is Blaze's Boylan continues to torment our hero, right? But our Ulysses continues to be loyal to his Penelope, bringing her gifts, right? Amid all of these thoughts, right? And literally from like one page to the next, right? He eventually gets back to his Molly, right? And at one point he says, must go back for that lotion for her birthday, perhaps. June, July, August, September 8th, right? So September 8th is Molly's birthday, right? It's coming up. He's already thinking months in advance about getting her some lotion for her birthday, right? And slyly and not accidentally, guess what? September 8th is the date of the supposed date of the Virgin Mary.
That's crazy.
Of her birthday. So here,
where did
Joyce
you find that?
I don't remember.
The GIF?
Probably in the Gifford, and somewhere else was mentioned as well. If there were a couple of places I mentioned it. But how sly that on the one hand we have, right, Molly, right, who's going to cheat on her man. She's now associated with a Virgin Mary, right? She's also associated with Penelope, right, the loyal wife who waits for her husband. Right?
Well,
But anyway,
I mean, Mary cheated on Joseph with the Holy Spirit, so
that's very true.
She cuckolded her man as well.
Indeed.
Right? I'm just repeating what I heard. I wasn't there, but that's the story we were told, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, it is the story we were told, right? And then Nosy Flynn, right, tells Davy Byrne that he saw Bloom uh, in Henry Street with a jar of cream in his hand, taking it home to his better half. She's well nourished, I tell you. Plovers on toast.
The more
Fucking
the
no.
more she is the more she is described by other characters, the more I think of her as being like overweight, like a, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, right? The fat lady is the diva, the Costa diva, the opera singer who belts it out, right? But is a fatty. She's overweight, but
Yeah.
also buxom, right? Like she's got a nice big rack and
Well, see,
attractive hips and so on.
I don't.
Bloom likes him thick. We've already talked about that.
He does. I don't see her as overweight so much as just naturally curvaceous and full-bodied and so on, right? Plenty of
I
women
don't
have
know. She's
bodies of
well
that, right?
nourished, I tell you.
Well,
She's
she's well
well
nourished.
nourished.
But I did look over plovers on toast.
Yeah.
In the Gifford, that was a slang for full-breasted in an attractive way.
Oh,
Full-breasted in an
but it's
attractive way.
literally a dish, Plover's
It's a
it's fish, isn't it?
yeah, but
Fish on toast.
right, right. But the slang is full-breasted in an attractive way,
Oh
right? So in other
man,
words,
that's
something you can
great.
really something you can eat, I suppose, is the
Yeah.
origin there. Plovers on toast. So yes, but it's funny, but it's a funny image, right? Because it validates the fact that Bloom has been spotted by others taking her cream. And then the shift is to yet another man talking about Molly Bloom and how fucking hot she is and how delicious her curves are.
Should we
uh,
pity him? I mean, should we? How should we feel about this cuck? I mean, is he a
I
role
mean,
model in that he shows the ultimate devotion to his female ideal, or is he just a fucking chump?
he's both and more. I
Oh,
mean,
both and more, both and. Look at
it's
G.J.
never either
Villa,
or. No.
always
I mean,
going for the
he's
nuance.
maybe that's the easy way, but I don't know. I mean, it depends on you. To me, Bloom is particularly, maybe more so now in life than before, incredibly sympathetic, right? But also comical and also pitiable, absolutely pitiable, right? And it's just something that happens over and over. We hear other men talking about his wife in a really disrespectful way throughout the entire epic, right? Um, but it's very realistic and it's actually pretty funny too, right? Particularly coming out of the mouth of someone like Nosy Flynn, right? Um, uh, okay, and then later in the episode, right, he again thinks about Molly. Could buy one of those silk petticoats for Molly, color of her new garters, right? Bloom loves petticoats and garters. We've seen that throughout. But again, he's here being devotional, right? At the same, in the same episode, he's also tormented by the inevitability of what's going to happen between her and Boylan.
Yeah, but there's no overt confrontation or any confrontation at all. I mean, it's
No,
just
later on,
unspoken.
we'll see. In Sirens, he actually sees Boylan on the streets and then follows him, right, into the Ormond bar. He goes and has dinner on one side on the dining part. So he does there, but even then he doesn't confront him directly.
Well, I'm
That's for
thinking of no confrontation with Molly either,
no, there's not no. It's going to happen. He knows it's going to happen. He's resigned to it happening.
I'm just wondering what today's relationship coaches would say. What would Dr. Orion Taraban say? He's got a video about how love always involves some kind of humiliation. So I don't know. I'll see if I can find that to put in the show notes, but it certainly seems to relate to Bloom's condition, And think of the great lovers of medieval lore, Lancelot, for example, he's got to do whatever Guinevere commands him to do. You know, I'm at your service, my lady.
Right.
The
There's
pleasure of loving her depends on
right.
becoming enslaved to her. It's
No,
a
that's
masochistic kind of thing, which, I mean, you know, we think of Zakir Mazak, who, you know, Joyce certainly was aware of. But if you even go back to the troubadours, their ideal male-female relationship was a kind of masochism too, or sadomasochism.
well, you could call it. It was an act of sort of feudal devotion, right? You know, but yes,
Feudal or futile.
well, perhaps both. But I mean,
Yeah,
I would say that
both and.
yeah, both and exactly. Um, uh, okay, the depictions in literatures, right, of the courting troubadours, right, is sort of being parodied in this modern form by Bloom, right, the cuck who's been humiliated by his wife, right, and is still devotional, right. So we have that mock heroic sort of parody working, and yet at the same time, as we've talked about, right, it's still a very sympathetic portrait of this poor bloke who's getting cucked by his wife.
But if you go back to Ulysses, I mean Odysseus, right? Go back to Homer and the Greeks. Maybe there's a commentary on that as well. Are we supposed to believe that Penelope remained faithful? Like she didn't bang any of those suitors in 20 years? She just kept her, you know, kept herself closed for business for 2 decades?
Well,
Or is that just
there's no representation in the Odyssey that suggests as much as I mean, because in there she is depicted as the um, enduring, cunning in her own way. She weaves the shroud of her father, unweaves it every night to delay the suitors, but ultimately very loyal spouse, right? You can imagine also that all the eyes would be upon her. She's vulnerable. She's a queen without a king in this patriarchal world, right? The only reason she's refusing to marry because she says, "My husband, I don't know if he's dead or not," right? And they've been putting pressure on her now for a long time. But anyway, we're getting kind of sidetracked on the Penelope thing here, right? But yes, Bloom is devoted, right? Certainly in a way that Odysseus is devoted to Penelope. Remember, he has his flings with Calypso and Circe on the way back.
I was just thinking, I mean, so does Bloom with his Martha and his night town excursion. So
right. Absolutely.
A lot of different ways to look at it.
Exactly. I don't know if I have more notes, but let's see if we do. I forgot. I took these a couple weeks
ago. I think it's time for Vanilla Fudge to have his say.
Yeah. So those are my noticings, right? I'm glad you mentioned gulls and pigeons, because you're probably finding this too. You go through, and I go through, I reread it again, and then I'm taking all these notes, and I'm realizing there's just so much, right? But go ahead.
Well, I mean, I tried not to duplicate what you had already touched upon. You sent me your notes first, and I tried to just supplement. But on this slide here, these are the things you mentioned that you wish you had spent more time on. Gulls, and I added pigeons. Ads, throwaway, and oysters. So is there anything further you want to say? I would just point out that with the gulls, I mean, we already talked about how he fed them. Then he also thinks about how Robinson Crusoe ate swan meat, apparently.
Right.
This is funny. I'm not going to... He gets pissed off at the gulls in a way. He says, I'm not going to throw any more. Penny quite enough. A lot of thinks I get. Not even a caw. They spread foot and mouth disease, too. So he sours on the gulls pretty quickly. And then there are pigeons later.
Right.
And then he thinks the pigeons are conversing amongst themselves. Who will we do it on? I picked the fellow in black. Here goes. It's like they're plotting who they're going to drop their little bird turds on, you know?
Right.
Funny little interlude.
I love those. And the image is certainly of the gulls both the gulls and the pigeons. The gulls, I remember near the beginning of the episode, um, uh, um, we get a depiction of them sort of swooping down to devour the thrown food and so on, right? So they're a kind of image of Lestrygonians, if you will, devouring animals, etc.
What else did you want to say about ads? I mean, I saw the I thought this was the most apropos. What is home without plum trees, potted meat, incomplete? What a stupid ad. We
Yeah,
finally get his real opinion of it. And I think he mentions how in Wisdom Healy's he had certain ideas which the boss ignored because he didn't think of them.
right,
But
right.
was there something else about ads you
Well,
wanted to
just
focus on?
Bloom encountering ads, critiquing ads, Bloom the ads man, right? In terms of
Mm-hmm.
the epic hero's identity, you know, one emphasizes his ability. I mean, the guy's had there's references throughout the book that he's had a lot of sort of side gigs, right? You know, he does this, he
Yeah.
does that, right, etc. But
Davy
he's made
Byrne
it
asks,
work.
wasn't he in the insurance line? And Nosy Flynn says, nah, he's out of that now.
Right, right, right. So
He's a jack of all trades.
he makes ends meet, and he does quite well. He's not wealthy by any means, but he does well enough to have a home with Molly and so on, and she has her, you know. So you know, he exists in the world uh, 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 under the radar, but successfully doing various things.
Hmm. All right. Well, throwaway. You also mentioned there are a couple of, um, I don't know, references to this with different meanings. Of course, the first is the YMCA young man who placed a throwaway in a hand of Mr. Bloom, and this is that Elijah is coming handbill or whatever, and this will be important later, especially in Cyclops.
Yeah,
He
it's
threw down,
also
yeah, and
go
then
ahead.
well, Bloom threw it. He crumpled the handbill and threw it into the Liffey, and he says Elijah 32 feet per sec is come. So remember the law of falling bodies,
Mm-hmm.
32 feet per second, or I don't even know what all that means, but um,
Right,
that's
right.
already, of course, the fall has multiple meanings, right? It's like falling bodies, but it's also the fall of mankind and so on.
So it's
Um,
just basically these proselytizing Christians, I guess, right? You know, the Elijah is coming, is coming, is coming. All heartily welcome is what he
yeah.
gets.
Well, and
He
Elijah
throws.
is the precursor of Jesus, right? He's
Yeah, that's right. That's
the
right.
the Ur Christ, you could say. Post
But he
no
does.
bills. That's an interesting phrase that I've pondered over for many years. Um, but that, the bills are the throwaways, basically, those handbills.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's the horse tip throwaway, right? That's the man that
Right.
gave it to me. Bantam Lions whispered. That's later in Davy Burns. And then
That's
also
actually a
there's
good.
the. Go ahead.
Just pausing on that. That's a good point, right? We see Bantam Lions here, right? Who misunderstood what Bloom said earlier, right? When
Yeah.
Bloom said throw away, he said that's the tip for the horse race, right? So these miscommunications, as you said
Yes.
earlier, right?
Right.
Those happen over and over again.
And multiple meanings. So it's a
Multiple
literal
meanings.
handbill is a throwaway. You can then throw away that throwaway. Then there's a horse named throwaway.
Hmm.
Some of the throwaways are like posted throughout the city. Then there's another throwaway. Remember the ad about Jaffa and Palestine, Agendat,
Yep,
Netaim,
that's
right?
right.
So that's mentioned too. All right. Then you also said something
Well,
about oysters.
the only other thing I'd say about throwaway is
Mm.
that he throws that initial throwaway that he gets right with the Elijah's coming on it into the Liffey and it floats off. Later, when we get to the Wandering Rock section, which is the kind of interlude section, we have all these little mini portraits around Dublin, right? There's two or three, maybe three or four different references to that little ad still floating down the river later
Mm.
that day, right? So we're going to see that again. And you mentioned it's going to come back also in the Cyclops, which I've yet to reread. But again, the ingenious ways that Joyce is stitching everything together in
Yeah.
this cohesive whole Remarkable.
And we now see that Bloom is a litter bug. Canceled. How dare he? Throwing paper in the water?
Oyster. The only thing about oysters is that was, I think, you asked, what that I wanted to say something about oysters. I think oysters was in the context of a passage where Bloom is thinking about all the various kinds of things that humans consume, right? From the usual to the unusual to the disgusting, etc. And oysters comes up, right? And this is a great passage, right? Garbage, sewage they feed on, fizz and red bank oysters, effect on the sexual. Aphrodite, right? So the old oysters as aphrodisiacs idea comes into his head as well. Unsightly like a clot of phlegm.
Yeah,
that is such a great description
filthy
of
shills.
I love oysters, right? But my partner does not at all, right? So clot of phlegm, right? That's the way a lot of people who think they're disgusting probably view them, and they do look like a clot of phlegm.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, we used to say hawk a loogie. Some people say he hawked an oyster, right? Like the snot, the clot of phlegm is actually called an oyster because it looks like that. So you think about that next time you're enjoying your oysters there. Well, also, I think this had been mentioned in Hades, maybe. John Henry Menton has oyster eyes. I don't know why he keeps describing them like that. Round to Menton's office. He's talking about Dennis Breen with his UP up postcard, right? But he says his oyster eyes staring at the postcard. I think that means Menton.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, those were I was just picking up on things you had mentioned, but of course, there are many references to food and eating. We talked about pineapple, rock, lemon, plat, butterscotch, which is how the episode starts. It opens with that. You mentioned this, eat you out of house and home. Underfed. I thought this was funny. Potatoes and Marge and potatoes. There's the potato, right? We know Bloom has one in his pocket, and of course that's a staple of the Irish diet. This is interesting. Uneatable fox, pot hunters too. Fear injects juices, make it tender enough for them. That's a thing, I remember when I was in Korea, I tried dog a couple of times because,
I did too. We had dog stew when I went to visit you. Yeah.
And it's fine. It's fine. But I heard about how first of all, they take a blowtorch and burn all the fur off the dogs, and then they beat them to death because fear injects juices, make it tender enough for them. And actually, they say that's what they were doing to those kids on Epstein Island, right? Like they would torture them to death before they cannibalize them. Speaking of Lestrygonians, because the fear creates, it injects juices, make it tender enough for them. And
is this
causes
do you remember
the food to have a certain flavor?
And this is what I was talking about. These references to the horrible things that humans can consume. Right? Uneatable fox.
You're right.
Interesting because Bloom, remember, he likes the
kidneys,
organs of beasts, right?
Yeah,
but, he has his lines here. Uneatable fox, right?
Yeah.
Is this in the context? Is this when he walks into Burton? Like, does he have these thoughts?
He may be on the street. I don't remember, and I don't want to look it up right now. But
that's fine.
Just a lot of really interesting. Like that other passage you mentioned where he lists or he's like brainstorming all these weird things people eat.
Yeah.
Which when you think about it is pretty amazing, See the animals feed. Must eat. See the animals feed. Lick it off the plate, man. Get out of this. He's talking about
that's a Burton when he finally after he says, just taking it all in.
I hate dirty eaters. Then he thinks, get a light snack, and Davy Burns, more civilized there, right? Stopgap, keep me going, had a good breakfast. This is great. Gulp, grub, gulp, gob stuff. Beautiful alliteration. Never know whose thoughts you're chewing. Somehow he's like, this reminds me of something from, the Rig Veda or something. It's like something from an ancient Hindu text where the cycle of I don't know what you would call it, food and eating or digestion or whatever. Like, you know, we're all eating and being eaten. Essentially, that's what life is, right?
Well,
As
I
he
like that you
says multiple
just
times.
jumped out for me too. This line: "Never know whose thoughts you're chewing."
Yeah.
And to me, the idea is like, all right, thoughts come to you. You don't even have them, and some of those thoughts may not be your own in some ways, right? You're thinking about earlier parts of the day, right? You're having an idea that was never originally yours in the first place, right? So there's this kind of implied interconnectedness between all beings, if you will, right? Never know whose thoughts you're chewing, right? They're yours, but they're not just yours, right? You're part of this larger hive of humanity.
But that, you know, we talked about the connection between food and sex, basically. But what about food and thought? We talk about food for thought. We talk about, you know, why don't you chew on this for a while? It means to think about it, right? So wonder where that connection came from.
Right. It is interesting, the idea of like consuming ideas, consuming. I mean, so we talk about, you know, consuming books, consuming the right. So
yeah, someone, one of those German philosophers said, you know, you are what you eat. Man ist was isst. A person, or, you know, a human is what he eats, right? What he or she eats. So, and Nietzsche talked about that too, right? Like my philosophy, it's based on my digestion, you know, my mood after I've eaten or whatever. I'm going to read this lengthier passage because it's so great.
Yeah, do it.
After all, there's a lot in that vegetarian fine flavor of things, from the earth, garlic, of course. It stinks, Italian organ grinders, crisp of onions, mushrooms, truffles. Pain to animal, too. Pluck and draw fowl, wretched brutes there at the cattle market waiting for the pole axe to split their skulls open. Moo. Poor trembling calves. Meh. Staggering bob, bubble and squeak. Butcher's buckets wobble lights. Give us that brisket off the hook. Plop. Raw head and bloody bones. Flayed, glass-eyed sheep hung from their haunches. Sheep snouts bloody papered, sniveling nose jam on sawdust. Top and lashers going out. Don't maul them pieces, young one. And then there's that.
What an amazing passage.
Passage you already read. Hot, fresh blood they prescribe for decline. Blood always needed, insidious, lick it up, smoking hot, thick, sugary, famished ghosts. And then he thinks, I'm hungry.
That's right. That's awesome.
He entered Davy Burns. That's one of my favorites. And I think I do remember that from that first time, you know, when I was 18 or 19. It's like, what? Sniveling nose jam? On sawdust? Oh my goodness! What an image!
What was the depiction of the slaughtered sheep? What was the eyes popping or something like that?
Let's see. Flayed, glass-eyed sheep hung from their haunches. Sheep snouts, bloody papered, sniveling nose jam on sawdust.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So, you know, the prose is stunning. But what's really interesting here also is that there's a lot of that vegetarian fine flavor things of the earth. So he's, on the one hand, like, maybe they have vegetarianism, maybe that makes sense. And then he has this graphic depiction of the way in which we brutalize and subjugate animals for our consumption, right?
Yeah.
Then he goes into Davy Burns, and what does he order? A vegetarian dish, right? Gorgonzola and cheese and a burgundy, right?
Maybe vegetarian, but not vegan. He's got the cheese.
No, not vegan. But
yeah.
The other point I want to make is that remember, who are the vegetarians in this novel? It's the Theosophists.
A.E.
Theosophists, A.E. and his crowd.
And Shaw, George Bernard Shaw was a veggie also.
And there was a moral stance, right? You don't consume animals. They're sentient beings, etc., right? And so here Bloom has a moment where he's
thinking about it,
sympathetic about it, but end of the day, right?
He likes his kidneys.
Later on at the Ormond Bar, right, in Sirens, he's going to have go back to some more kidneys, right? So anyway, Good stuff.
This is great too. Know me, come eat with me. Again, there's that the social aspect of food and eating, right? It's sexual, it's social, it's philosophical,
It
it's
brings people
related to
together, right? Right.
language and thinking.
Right.
All right, and this is a great one too. And we stuffing food in one hole and out behind. Food, Kyle, blood, dung, earth, food, have to feed it like stoking an engine. This is what I'm talking about. This seems very Hindu to me, like ancient Vedic type stuff. There's some passages in the Rig Veda, maybe the Upanishads too, talking about this whole cycle of eating and digestion, right? How did I put it in goat songs? Ingestion, digestion, excretion, something like that. By the way, the audio book, the RTE version, reads this as Chyle. I don't think that's right. It's Kyle, Chyle. I looked it up. It's Kyle. I thought
What does
that's
that
what it
mean,
was.
by the way? What is
It's
Kyle?
just like it's like food that is yet to be
Okay.
digested, I think, or it's like pulpy, like cud would be the equivalent if we're talking about a cow, I think. But it's like food in the process of being digested, I
Well,
believe.
interestingly, remember later that Ben Half memory that Molly
Yeah, exactly.
gives him this mashed up
Right.
food and feeds it from her mouth to his mouth,
Mm.
right? Gives him Kyle, I guess.
Yeah. And
Nice.
speaking of cud, a ravenous terrier choked up a sick, knuckly cud on the cobblestones and lapped it with new zest. I mean, that's just
That's
just
great.
random. Like after he steps out of Davy Burns, there's just a little sentence there describing that. Oh, that happened too, coincidentally,
Right.
in this episode about food and eating and digestion and
That's right.
kind
That's
of
right.
the barbaric aspect of that, right? Like we
Right.
can't escape it. Even if you are vegetarian, you're still eating life, as Joseph Campbell said many times, life lives on life,
Yep.
like I remember having this conversation with our old acquaintance Jason Smith. It's like during one of our psychedelic trips, I think we had the thought of like, oh man, it's horrific to think of like eating an animal. That's fucking horrible. And then I think I said like we should all eat just plants. And then he pointed out, as sometimes he was wont to do, you know um not the smartest guy in some contexts, but occasionally he would have interesting insights. He said, well, plants are alive too, and that's you know
And
maybe there's a hierarchy of sentience, as you said, but technically speaking, you can't get away from it, right? Like if you're alive, it's because you're eating something that was alive and is now dead to keep you alive.
Yeah. All right.
So the constables, that's our symbol. This is.
And by the way, I really appreciate that incredible catalog you have there. Right, just does attest to the gnawing nature of the midday and the frenzy that happens. Right, we're all consuming. Anyway, constables, go ahead.
Well, this is a pretty brief passage. Since they're the symbol, let's see if we can make sense of it. A squad of constables debouched from College Street, marching in Indian file, goose step, food-heated faces, sweating helmets, patting their truncheons, after their feed with a good load of fat soup under their belts. Policeman's lot is oft a happy one. They split up into groups and scattered, saluting towards their beats, let out to graze. Best moment to attack one in pudding time, a punch in his dinner. A squad of others marching irregularly, rounded Trinity railings, making for the station, bound for their troughs. Prepare to receive cavalry. Prepare to receive soup. What are we to make of that? Why are they the symbol of this episode?
They come across as thuggish, don't they?
Yeah.
They're unsympathetically portrayed. They're not individuals. They're made of fat and
They're
so on.
Lestrygonians too.
They're Lestrygonians. They're like they're not the king, right? Antiphates or whatever his name was, right? But the constables will be the Lestrygonians, I suppose, who remember swoop down and devour Odysseus's men. There's a hint of like, just have the right kind of leadership in mind, and these would be the fucking like brown shirts or the fascists on the
Absolutely.
streets, right?
Well, there's
And
reference to a kind of riot, like they beat people with their truncheons and billy clubs and whatnot.
exactly. Then later, I haven't gotten back to rereading it. I think you have, but in the Cyclops, right, we have that the citizen and his fascist ways and so on, right? And Bloom defies that ideology. So they're antagonists here.
All right. Moving on. A.E. Here's a picture of A.E. Beard and bicycle. Remember that? And you can see him in this picture with a very well-developed beard, or let's say, I don't know, scraggly. Beard and bicycle. So he's on a bicycle. Young woman may or may not be Lizzie Twig. Bloom says that might be Lizzie Twig with him. The vegetarian. And this is so funny. Her stockings are loose over her ankles. I detest that. So tasteless. Those literary, ethereal people, they are all dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic. Aesthetes they are. So this is why he didn't, maybe this is why he didn't, he wasn't impressed with Lizzie Twig's response. She had these loose stockings over her ankles. So no,
I'm glad you pointed that out. That she was one of the 46 responses. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. That's great.
I think so.
But yeah, this is just so Bloom. Like, this is not the way a woman should wear stockings, right? That is just tasteless. And this is important too because A.E. is going to be a big character in the upcoming episode, Scylla and Charybdis, where Stephen debates A.E. and the Theosophists, right? And holds his own, of course, right? They recognize him as this brilliant young man. But this is like one of the leading intellectuals of the day, right? Well, a tastemaker, if you will, and so on. And I love the way that so in that sense, this was not only Stephen's rivals, but
Joyce's too. Yeah,
Joyce's rivals of the day. And notice the way he's using his everyman hero to dismiss them as dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic.
Right.
They're just like they're airy. There's nothing substantial to them, and that's also going to prefigure what's going to happen in the library when we have this sort of debate between the Aristotelian, which is Stephen, and the Platonists, who are these dreamy, cloudy, symbolistic aesthetes, right?
Pull your socks up, Lizzie. I mean, I would just point out that A.E. actually ducks out of the library pretty early on. He doesn't stay for the full.
He does not. He has other appointments. He's a very busy, sought-after man, and so on. But
so he doesn't seem that interested in what Stephen is saying. And Stephen, well, we'll get into that later, but anyway, he is there in the library for a while, and I think he appears elsewhere. You know what the A.E. is for? Supposedly it's short for eon or ion, which is really a Gnostic concept, I think.
And theosophical sort of language, right?
Yes.
The way in which they would speak about these ethereal realms and so on.
But originally they got, that's a Greek concept coming from Gnosticism. All right, so Davy Byrne, Bloom says when he walks in, moral pub, he doesn't chat, stands a drink now and then, but in leap year once in 4, cashed a check for me once. So it's interesting we get the two perspectives. We heard Davy Byrne's opinion about Bloom, and now Bloom, this is previous to that, Bloom has given us, the reader, his take on Davy Byrne. And Nosy Flynn, these are hilarious. Look at his mouth, could whistle in his own ear, flap ears to match. Nosy, and the narrator tells us, Nosy Flynn snuffled and scratched. And then Bloom thinks, Flea having a good square meal. Hope that dewdrop doesn't come down into his glass. No, snuffled it
That
up.
that dewdrop, like he's like his nose is running the whole time.
Yes.
Like Nosy Flynn's nose is always running.
He's got a cup of grog or something, and everyone's watching. Like, is that snot gonna drip into his glass? Nope, snuff. Oh, he got that one. And then here comes another one. He snuffles it up. Nosy numbskull, he calls him.
And it's so pronounced that's just his name now, and he accepts it too. Nosy Flynn. So he is this comic. It is a kind of contrast, right? There's a kind of gravitas and quiet dignity about Davy Byrne, and then his barman is Nosy Flynn, who is this comical, snuffling character. But to your point earlier, I do love this that Byrne and Bloom validate each other, and Bloom's saying moral pub. That's an interesting moral pub as opposed to an immoral. This he doesn't chat. I really like that. In other words, here's a barman who runs his business. He'll serve you, but he's not going to sit there and yap away all night, etc. Unlike perhaps Nosy Flynn.
Well, he lets Nosy Flynn do that. He's like more interested in keeping the books. There's reference to him like looking over the accounts or something.
Right.
Yeah, so this is the kind of place you would expect Bloom to go to, right? It's kind of quiet. It doesn't get too rowdy. There's not a citizen in here like threatening people with his fucking dog.
Yeah.
I like Davy Byrne, you know?
I do too.
He had a good band in the 80s. They were called the Talking Heads. You may have heard of them.
Byrne, that's right. Yeah. That's right. One thing, just let me interject real fast. We were talking about revisiting Joyce, and one thing that among the many that I'm enjoying in ways I didn't before are these minor portraits. Right? These are not main characters in any ways, but yet the sketches done here fill them with humor, with humanity, and I'm really enjoying that the second time around that I have my bearings and so on. I feel like I can see these minor characters more vividly.
And that's what I've been trying to do with these, episodic discussions we're having. I want to flesh out these minor characters, because they are absolutely important. But yeah, as you say, like the first few times, it's like, okay, I know we heard about this guy before, but I don't really know who he is. Now they're coming to life for me more.
Absolutely.
I mean, Davy Byrne, I always liked the Davy Byrne character. Maybe it was reading that excerpt from the Norton anthology that, like encountering him and Nosy Flynn that made me want to jump into the whole novel. But anyway, Boylan, straw hat and sunlight, tan shoes, turned up trousers. It is. I thought that was an interesting physical or, visual description of him.
And Boylan, I love the way he's always got that straw hat. He's got his tan shoes. He's dandyish, right? And one detail that keeps popping up, his socks have sky blue clocks on them. I love that detail, right? A little sky blue clocks all in his socks. So
sounds pretty fruity.
Yeah, exactly. He's imagined his man down to the toes, quite literally.
What's the card in Loteria? El Catarin. Is that what he is?
El Catarin? Possibly. That's right.
In the Mexican card game Loteria.
That's right, El Catarin.
El Catarin, he's like a dandy kind of.
That's right, El Catarin. That's right.
Yeah. All right, so Mr. and Mrs. Breen, her language is really interesting. Oh, don't be talking, she said. He's a caution to rattlesnakes. He's in there now with his law books, finding out the law of libel. He has me heart scalded. Wait till I show you. And that's when she takes out the UP up.
She's talking about her husband, right?
Yeah,
who's convinced that he has been slandered, right? Because he received in the mail some anonymous note that just says UP up, right? The joke is he doesn't know what it means, but he's convinced he's being... So Miss Breen is married to this guy who is angry and paranoid, and she's waiting on the streets for him right now, right? He has me heart scalded.
Heart scalded, isn't that great? Does receiving of a card with a message on it remind you of anything from Irish history?
Nothing that comes immediately to mind.
Somdomite.
I mean, please continue.
Somdomite, the Duke of Queensberry, Oscar Wilde. The Somdomite, Oscar Wilde.
That's right. That's right. Okay. It did not
Right,
remind
and
me
it
that at
led
all.
to it led to a legal case. UP Up is potentially going to be a legal case as well. He's trying to.
Okay. We don't. But what does UP Up even signify? That's kind of the comedy here,
I don't
right?
know,
Like,
but it's a
neither does
just
Dennis Breen. I know that's
right.
the funny part, right? He doesn't even know himself, and he is right now, right, meeting with a lawyer to find out if he's been libeled somehow.
Yes, but he's received a card with something on it, and he wants to make a legal case out of it.
Yeah.
Isn't that what Saint Oscar did? He received a calling card.
No, I understand that. That's true. That's true. But beyond that, there's nothing more analogous between this moment and the Wilde case.
Sure, but I
right?
think that's pretty. I think that's pretty significant. You know, it's like here's another random, intentionally provocative card received by someone who wants to make a legal case out of it with potentially disastrous consequences.
Yeah, possibly. But the comedy is like, what does it even mean, right? How has he been slandered or libeled, right?
Well, I know, but isn't that very Joycean in itself, right? The guy can't even spell sodomite. He writes somdomite, It's like the whole throwaway thing,
was that in the note, somdomite? Is that what you're talking about?
That's how the whole case came about.
No. I'm talking. Wait. I'm talking about what Mr. Breen's received.
No.
The Wild
this
case.
Is just.
I know the Wild case.
UP Up, right? But
right.
Is it an abbreviation for something? U something, right. P something, up. Again.
Yeah, can he not get it up? Who knows?
It's the I don't know, the failure or insufficiency of language, right? Like there's always room for interpretation and misinterpretation.
Absolutely. But somdomite, it's pretty clear what's intended, right? It was just a comical misspelling, right? Somdomite.
But that's a very Joycean moment. It's just like Martha writing, I don't like that other world when she means other word, right?
Right. Which Bloom then cites later on.
Yes,
right? He cites her
exactly.
Miscommunication.
So these kinds of miscommunications happen all the time in the world of Joyce and in the real world and in Irish history. All right. This is funny. Woke me up in the night, she said. This is Mrs. Breen. Dream he had a nightmare. Said the ace of spades was walking up the stairs. What the hell's that? Is that like the panther, the black panther that Stephen has the nightmare about? It's a premonition of Bloom. Is he the ace of spades?
To me, the comedy of the scene is that this poor woman is confiding in Bloom, saying things about her husband. I'm sure that he would not want her to say, right, that he had this nightmare, etc. So she's confiding in him because Bloom, remember, as I mentioned earlier, has given her his sympathy. Look into her eyes, listen to her. And these are some of the things she says. The portrait is one of a very paranoid man, and she is at her wit's end about her husband, right, who she's waiting for. And then he arrives.
Here's the description of him. Dennis Breen in skimpy frock coat and blue canvas shoes shuffled out of Harrison's, hugging two heavy tomes to his ribs.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
He's out with these two tomes to try to figure out if he can find some sort of legal basis for pursuing a case.
He doesn't even know who sent it to him.
That's right.
And Bloom says meshuggah. That's a Yiddish word, of course. Off his chump. Hilarious. UP up. Okay.
What does meshuggah mean? What does that mean?
It's like crazy, off
crazy.
his chump. Nuts.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Another
really quick little portrait here, right? Dennis Breen. And then you mentioned Up, right?
Cashel, Boyle, O'Connor, Fitzmaurice, Tisdall, Farrell. Watch him, Mr. Bloom said. He always walks outside the lamppost. He's got some kind of OCD ritual, I guess. Watch. And then Mrs. Breen says, Dennis will be like that one of these days.
That's hilarious.
So Cashel, Boyle, O'Connor, Fitzmaurice, Tisdall, Farrell has a tight skull piece, a dangling stick, an umbrella, and a dust coat. So this is, as you say, like, I don't know, the village idiot or the town eccentric or something.
The wandering eccentric who appears again in Wandering. He's one of the wandering rocks in that episode, one of these little mini portraits. He's like, he's always mentioned by his full name.
Right.
But this is so hilarious when Miss Brain says to Bloom, Dennis will be like that one of these days.
Right.
Oh God!
And you say this guy's based on a real historical character. There was a guy like this in Dublin.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Mina Purefoy. We don't need to spend too much time on her. We've already talked about her. She's in the Lying In Hospital in Hollis Street. We'll talk about that more. When we get to Oxen of the Sun, this should say Dr. Horn got her in. I don't know why I didn't catch that typo. She's 3 days bad now. Okay,
3 days of labor.
Yeah, and you already
everybody
read
knows
this
about
passage about the child being tugged out of her and the blood of the lamb. Bah. All right, so these three alemates, Patty Leonard, Bantam Lyons, Tom Rochford, and Davy Burns. This hilarious, I thought. Cold water and ginger pop. Two fellows that would suck whiskey off a sore leg. I can't remember which one of them says it, but he's buying the round. He's buying the first round, so he's like, "What's yours? What's yours?" And he's like, "Look at these guys would suck whiskey off a sore leg." That's such a great. That's almost worthy of Simon, right? That's a Simonism.
Well, he's shocked because they've ordered non-alcoholic
exactly.
drinks. Like what the hell? Like these guys would suck whiskey.
Exactly. One of them has dyspepsia, right? So no drinking today. And then later, whichever one it is, maybe it's Rochford. He says, a sucking bottle for the baby." When Davy Burns says, ginger beer or whatever, ginger pop, he's like, a sucking bottle for the baby.
I have to say that I really love the way Joyce has very minor characters oftentimes express themselves in the Irish of the streets of Dublin, right? And it's kind of lower middle class mostly what he's depicting here, right? The unique ways in which they express themselves has been really just a delight.
Eloquently, hilariously.
Yeah, incredibly. Yeah,
I mean, Linehan with his corny, stupid jokes and Aeolus is still entertaining, And a lot, these jokes themselves are throwaways if we want to.
Right.
If we want to, revert back to that phrase.
Two fellows that would suck whiskey off a sore leg.
That's great. Yeah. All right. This is a very important image. The stuck flies. You probably remember. I'm going to just briefly read this because it's
good.
It's a great passage, and we'll see if we can analyze it and understand it. Stuck on the pane, two flies buzzed. Stuck. Glowing wine on his palate lingered swallowed, crushing in the wine press grapes of Burgundy. Sun's heat it is, seems to a secret touch telling me memory. Touched his sense, moistened, remembered, hidden under wild ferns on health. Below us bay sleeping sky, no sound, the sky, the bay purple by the lion's head, green by Drumleck, yellow-green towards Sutton, fields of undersea, the lines faint brown in grass, buried cities. Pillowed on my coat she had her hair, earwigs in the heather, scrub my hand under her nape, you'll toss me all. Oh, wonder! Cool soft with ointments her hand touched me, caressed. Her eyes upon me did not turn away. Ravished over her I lay. Full lips full open, kissed her mouth. Yum. Softly she gave me in my mouth the seed cake, warm and chewed. Mawkish pulp her mouth had mumbled, sweet and sour with spittle. Joy, I ate it. Joy, young life, her lips that gave me pouting. Soft, warm, sticky gum jelly lips.
Mm.
Flowers her eyes were, take me, willing eyes. Pebbles fell, she lay still, a goat. No one, high on Ben Houth, rhododendrons, a nanny goat walking sure-footed, dropping currants. Screened under ferns, she laughed warm-folded. Wildly I lay on her, kissed her. Eyes, her lips, her stretched neck, beating, woman's breast full in her blouse of nun's veiling. Fat nipples upright. Hot I tongued her. She kissed me. I was kissed. All yielding, she tossed my hair. Kissed, she kissed me. Me, and me now.
That's
Stuck,
extraordinary.
the flies buzzed. I know you
Yeah,
read
that's
part of that, but I wanted
no,
to
that's
read
great.
the whole thing in
That is
context.
a just such a stunning passage. It's just
So,
amazing.
I mean, as you say, we come back to that in the Penelope section at the end. So, I mean, this is really a very important episode just for this part alone, not to
Oh,
mention all the other
absolutely.
things we've talked about. But how about the image of the flies? Two flies buzzed, stuck. The flies buzzed.
Well, to me, what's interesting is the way that this image of stuck flies, hardly a beautiful image, is what triggers the thoughts, right, of this pivotal moment on Ben Houth, right? This scenic hill um, overlooking the ocean that's so important. So it's the kind of grotesque image which launches us into this poetic passage. Then we come back to Bloom thinking about how he was then and how he is now, and then it ends with the flies again, right? So, I mean, in some ways, aren't Bloom and Molly sort of stuck flies in terms
Yes,
of the
that
state of
of
their
course.
relationship,
That's
right?
to me
So,
that's the most obvious interpretation. They're the two flies that are
right.
stuck together in their marriage.
But
You
look at
could
what they
also say
were.
that
Well, look at what they were before they were stuck
right,
flies. Look at what
right.
they had, what's been lost.
You could also say that it's the two blooms, the two stuck flies are the two blooms, me and me
Yeah,
now. Me
absolutely.
before and me now. Maybe those are the two flies that are stuck. But
Right.
I mean, it's as you say, it's a grotesque it's a I don't know, like a metaphysical, it's something like John Donne would use as an image, right?
Oh, right,
a,
right.
a
Absolutely.
metaphysical poet's kind of image, but so powerful.
There was something that came to mind when you were reading that I'll see if I can find it, but um God, all right. Um it was near the beginning before he gets to Molly. He's having these thoughts that kind of lead to that moment, but
Hmm.
I'll look for that later and see if I can find
Okay.
it, right?
All
But
right,
anyway,
well, quickly, curves are important. uh
yes.
you talked about this in a WhatsApp message. Beauty, it curves. Curves are beauty. Shapely goddesses, Venus, Juno. Curves the world admires. Can see them library, museum, standing in the round hall. Naked goddesses. That's important for the next episode. Freemasonry is mentioned. Nosy Flynn thinks Bloom is in the craft, and Bloom himself passes the Freemasons Hall. I'm always sensitive to references to Freemasons because, like the Jews, they're another kind of mysterious group of people that the normies have suspicions about.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
A secret society.
Maybe
A
Nosy
secret
Flynn,
society behind the sort of visible society. Right.
yeah,
He's
and
in the craft.
maybe Nosy Flynn is so clueless that he doesn't realize that Bloom is Jewish. He's one of them Freemasons.
Right. Right.
Architecture. This is supposed to be important, but I don't really know that it is. There's reference to the building that Sir Thomas Dean designed. I guess that's the museum or library. Was there anything else about architecture? I don't know why that's the art of this chapter
I'm
or
puzzled by that too. I'm
this.
really not sure.
Yeah.
That's one of those things I'd have to look into more closely. But I'm with you. I'm really not sure how architecture is working in this one.
This is great. I mean, this is totally random, just mentioned in passing, but what he's saying here is pretty fascinating. Who is this? She was like, oh, yes, Mrs. Miriam d'Andrade that sold me her old wraps and black underclothes in the Shelbourne Hotel. Divorced Spanish American. Didn't take a feather out of her my handling them, as if I was her clothes horse. Saw her in the vice regal party when Stubbs the park ranger got me in with Whelan of the Express. Scavenging what the quality left. High tea. Mayonnaise I poured on the plums thinking it was custard. Her ears ought to have tingled for a few weeks after. Want to be a bull for her. Born courtesan. No nursery work for her, thanks.
Mm.
What is this? Did
Yeah.
he buy used underwear from this
Well, remember,
Spanish American lady for himself to jerk off with, or was it from Molly? What's this?
that's a good question. I do remember that later on, I think in Wandering Rocks, some of the men talking about Bloom say that he was in the used clothes business. He and Molly were doing the used clothes, selling used clothes, the repurposed clothes or something. So I don't know. I think that might be it, right?
Like
But
a secondhand store or a consignment
yes,
store or something.
that was one of the many jobs that he had, right? In the
But
course of all this.
he enjoyed this particular
He did
part of
enjoy
the
that.
job, right? He's like, ooh, old wraps and black underclothes.
No, for sure. He says later, I want to be a bull. What did he say? That bull line?
I want well, let's see, where is it? A clothes as if I was her clothes horse. And he says, want to be a bull for her. Born courtesan, no nursery work for her, thanks.
Born courtesan. Right. This also seems to prefigure a little bit like the scene with Cersei, etc.
Yeah.
Right. I remembered what I was going to say earlier about that passage, just going back very, very quickly, the passage of the flies, which then leads to the memory on Ben Houth. That one of the things that he remembers, and Bloom remembers in such specificity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool, soft with ointments, her hands touched me.
Yeah.
So he remembers the ointment-rich nature of her hands. And remember, in this episode, I'm just realizing this now, right? One of the things he thinks about buying her is lotion.
Yeah.
Remember?
Right.
He likes it when her skin is nice and soft. And in this, primal memory, if you want to call it that, right? That's one of the details that sticks with him.
Well, he may have an ulterior motive for that too, right? Because what else can you do with lotion?
Right. We see later that Bloom is not antithetical to that either, as we'll see in Nausicaa, right? With the curves, I'll just add one more thing. He's thinking about the curves of Venus and Juno, and you can see them in the library museum. Remember, he's going to go there also to see if they're anatomically correct.
Yeah, right. Do they have buttholes?
Right. But that's, again, part of Bloom, an admirer of kind of classic feminine form, but he also wants to see if they're like anatomically correct as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, he's thinking about digestion and chyle and all of that, right? So, I wonder, do those shapely, curvy goddesses, do they, when they were designed by their sculptors, do they have buttholes or not?
Yeah.
If they don't, that's even more disturbing, right? It's like Lawrence's, I think Swift said, oh, my girlfriend or wife, whatever, it's horrible to think of her shitting, And Lawrence said, think of the alternative. What if she didn't shit? That would be even worse, wouldn't it?
That's such a Lawrence response. That's fantastic.
Did you notice this? Page 156. Bloom thinking to himself, what was the name of that priesty-looking chap was always squinting in when he passed? Penn something? Penn Dennis? My memory is getting Penn? And then we have to wait until page 181, 25 pages later, just randomly, he's walking along the street thinking about something else, and then suddenly Penrose, that was that chap's name. Did you catch that?
I did. I did.
That's fantastic. Amazing,
Yeah, it's great. That's so realistic too, the way that thought you lose comes back hours later, maybe days later sometimes.
And Penn.
Yeah, because
Shim the Pen Man.
Joyce is the pen man,
But
right?
Shim the Pen Man is one of the important figures in The
Finnegan's Wake.
Wake.
That's right.
All
That's
right.
right.
So I'm going to let you read the N word. Go ahead. That's on page
Oh, I'm going to
171.
pass on reading it, but I don't know if that's the same passage on mine. But what is the context? Why don't we just sort of paraphrase it?
Well, he's I don't know. He just random. Oh, he's talking about cannibals. White missionary too salty. And then he remembers this verse. I guess it's doggerel about
Well,
a Reverend Mac Trigger that was eaten by some cannibals. And Mac
right.
Trigger rhymes with. Go ahead, say it. Get yourself canceled.
I'm going to pass on that, right?
Oh,
But yes,
okay.
I'll say this: that the N word does appear here. It appears later. It appeared earlier. Some of these, and that's realistic for the day. The European sort of depictions of savages and so on, right? I think it appears in it might in Scylla. Anyway, this is not the only place that.
Oh yes, it does.
These kind of race.
Steven says it.
Right.
Yeah. And there's reference to that uh minstrel performer as well. Eugene Stratton is his name. That's maybe later. Or I think actually he appeared in Hades and then I don't know. He's described with that particular lexical item later. Remember par? Par, it's Greek, parallel, parallax. But then also we had the par of paragraph. That's some interesting repetition. This is so funny. Ben Dollard and his bass, BASE, barrel tone voice. Hilarious.
Well,
that's
he's going to appear
Molly's
in.
joke.
He's one of the singers in
Sirens. Yes,
Sirens. He's going to use that bass barrel tone voice, right? Because we have Simon Dedalus there, who's a tenor, and then Ben Dollard is a bass, right? And they both do their songs there.
Bass barrel tone. That's great. All right, so the Healy's guys reminds him. I love this phrase. Speaking of well-turned phrases, well out of that ruck I am. He's thinking about how he no longer, works for Wisdom
Healy's.
Do
that gig anymore. That's right.
Yeah, I think I could use that phrase at the present moment myself. But anyway, the blind stripling, tune pianos. I think that will come up later. Dark men, they call them. I guess blind people who are blind are called dark men, which has multiple meanings. Reuben J, remember him? Yep. The devil break the hasp of your back. Bloom thinks now he's really what they call a dirty Jew. I think one of the websites, Ulysses Guide or something, pointed this out too. Like, sure, Bloom is Jewish and does not reject his Jewish heritage, but he also is not above criticizing, usurers and money lenders, maybe.
Yeah, interesting. Also, he's the dirty Jew. I'm not the dirty Jew, right?
Right. Yeah, there's that.
But in Hades, remember that while they're all Bloom and Cunningham and Daedalus and I forget who's Jack Power, they're on the way to the funeral, and they remember this anecdote about Reuben
the
J.
son,
God, right?
Yeah.
Someone fished his son out of the River Liffey after his son attempted suicide. Right. They mock him, or they disparage him for giving him a skimpy sum.
Right.
Anyway.
All right, a few morsels and tidbits rather. Wasn't that Titbits was one of the magazines that he was reading in the toilet, right?
Was it?
Wasn't it?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Anyway, morsels and tidbits, given our food and eating theme. I thought this was funny. I don't know why, but this sounds like a ghastly outfit. Molly had that elephant gray dress with the braided frogs. Doesn't that sound hideous?
That's right.
That's the most Ajima type of outfit you can imagine her wearing.
Specificity there.
Yeah, braided frogs. Oh my God. LSD is mentioned. I remember the first time I saw that, I'm like, what? Did you notice that?
Yeah, but it doesn't stand for LSD, the
I
drug.
know, but
Right.
the first time you see it, you think it does, don't you? You have to
Right.
look it up and know that it's pounds, shillings, and pence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Stream of life, stream of consciousness. This is a great line. No one is anything.
Oh, that's a moment I remember when he just is in the height of his bleakness. No one is anything.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Gas balls spinning about, crossing each other, passing. He likens, all these planets to like the pineapple rock that he heard at the beginning. Touch fingers, asking, answer, yes. I think you mentioned that. This is interesting. The word Holocaust actually appears. Holocaust. Karma, they call that transmigration for sins you did in a past life. The reincarnation met him pike hoses. I like this.
It's interesting the way this notion of metempsychosis, other lives and transmigrations of souls. Those are very theosophical kind of ideas too that are sort of filtered throughout this
and
book.
And the Akashic records, and Mr. Bloom ate his strips of sandwich, fresh, clean bread, with relish of disgust. That's a paradoxical phrase. With relish of disgust. Pungent mustard, the feedy savor of green cheese.
The feedy savor.
Isn't that great? What is relish of disgust?
Well, I think
it's like rotten cheese that
right.
is also delicious, or like stinky tofu that smells terrible, but people like to eat it. Relish of disgust. It's great.
Answered right. Like if the sentence had ended there with relish of disgust, it would make sense. But then you have the specificities, the pungent mustard and the feedy savor of green cheese. Those kinds of tastes, right? The relish of disgust. I know.
Feety.
I know. It's just like, good Lord.
Cheese digests all but itself. Mighty cheese. Gorgonzola, have you? And then he thinks, like a few olives too, if they had them. I mean, those details are just so. I don't know, how would we describe them? Beautiful.
Specific.
Appropriate. Yeah, right. That specificity. That lust for description. All right. I did. I hope this is not too long. It's not. Let me just read this. This is important. A warm shock of air, heat of mustard, hotched on Mr. Bloom's heart. He raised his eyes and met the stare of a bilious clock. 2. Pub clock 5 minutes fast. Time going on. Hands moving. 2. Not yet. This is because Nosy Flynn has just mentioned whom, I should say, Blazes Boylan.
He's thinking 2 o'clock, 2 hours. In other words, they're fated to meet at 4 o'clock, right? So, yes, it's interesting the way that the food is depicted as impacting haunch on Mr. Bloom's heart, right? So
I don't even know that word. Hotched. Hauched. Yeah. A warm shock of air, heat of mustard. Yeah, it's like heartburn, basically, right?
Yeah.
Heartburn is what he's experiencing. And again, there's that peptic dis-ease, not disease, but unease in the solar plexus region.
And the physical irritation is then echoed by the gloomy thought, right?
Absolutely, it's psychosomatic.
Those things are connected here, right? Completely.
Yeah. This is also another great random passage. I don't know if you noticed it or paused over it, but I love this. This is after he's eaten. He's drunk his burgundy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dribbling a quiet message from his bladder, came to go, to do, not to do, there to do. Let me read that again. Dribbling a quiet message from his bladder, came to go, to do, not to do, there to do. A man and ready, he drained his glass to the lees and walked. To men too they gave themselves, manly, conscious, lay with men lovers. A youth enjoyed her to the yard. So this is the poetic description of him standing up to go take a piss.
Yeah, right.
Dribbling a quiet message from his bladder.
Mm-hmm. And then it's
okay.
depiction. Yeah.
Maybe you're not as impressed by that as I am.
No,
I think that's fantastic. All right, so we come to our playlist. You suggested Eat It by Weird Al. Of course, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So I put that at the top of the list. We got Sugar, Sugar, That reminded me of the Pineapple Rock and so on. You also suggested James Brown, Do the Mashed Potatoes. It's actually plural. I always thought it was Do the Mashed Potato, but it's mashed potatoes. YMCA by the Village People for our YMCA with the throwaway, huh? Do you know this? Gilbert and Sullivan from the Pirates of Penzance. A policeman's lot is not a happy one.
No, I don't.
Again, misremembered. Bloom thinks to himself, a policeman's lot is oft a happy one. He remembers it wrong.
Right.
But he probably would have heard it. Maybe Molly appeared in a Gilbert and Sullivan performance. She Drives Me Crazy by whom? Fine Young Cannibals, of course. Those Lestrygonians. As a tribute to McTrigger, I've got Monty Python's Never Be Rude to an Arab. People can figure that out later. Brother John suggested Dylan's Just Like Tom Thumb's Blues because there's that line, I started out on Burgundy, but then I hit the hotter stuff. Red Wine by Neil Diamond, originally, later UB40 and so on. That's also from Brother John. To which I added Spill the Wine, Eric Burden and War. That's a great one. Excitable Boy by Warren Zevon, who, before or as he was dying of cancer, reminded people to enjoy every sandwich. Get it? Just like Bloom does with the Gorgonzola cheese sandwich with mustard. Davy Byrne's band has 2 songs in the playlist, Blind for the blind stripling, and most importantly, The Great Curve. The world moves on a woman's hips.
There you go. For the curves of the goddesses.
Yes.
Venus, Juno.
All right. Everyone support HJS. Pick up your copy of Flan's Day and Wild's Day whenever it comes out soon. Subscribe on Substack, Mark Will Write, WRITE.substack.com. This is on YouTube if you're watching, at Mark Will Write, WRITE. Back to our ugly mugs. So, that's it for episode 8. Any final thoughts?
Very rich, meaningful, engrossing episode.
I think it's often overlooked, It's like, it's kind of in the middle, not that important. I think this is a great episode.
I do too, and I think that memory of Ben Houth is so crucial, right?
Yeah.
And as we said, some of the things that we learn, the fact that their sexual relationship has been stalled, putting it nicely, for 11 years, stuck, right? The way that they're stuck like those 2 flies. There's a lot we learn in this episode that's important, and the language is unique and powerful, and so on. So good stuff.
Yeah, some of the best descriptive passages. Sniveling nose jam on sawdust.
Yeah. The concrete specificity is
top notch.
Absolutely.
All right, so episode 9 is Scylla and Charybdis in the library. I've already got a song for the playlist. It's by The Police.
All right. I'll start thinking of songs too.
You know which one? Can you guess?
synchronicity.
Wrapped around your finger.
Oh, that works too.
It mentions, I mean, Sting drops his literary illusion. He actually mentions Scylla and Charybdis.
He does. That's right.
Anyway.
That's right. Well, I was thinking wrapped around your finger the way in which that Shakespeare in Stephen's depiction was in some ways wrapped around Anne Hathaway's
Hathaway.
finger, right?
Sweet and 26 when he's 18. Did you look that up? I mean, old Will was 18 when he knocked up the 26-year-old Anne Hathaway. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Did I say and or Anne? Anyhow, I guess we'll talk off camera about scheduling a time for episode 9. But yeah, next stop, the library at 2 p.m.
All right, looking forward to it.
All right, so this has been episode 8 of the Rejoyce series. Tune in for episode 9, all you book burners and Joyceans, and we'll see you next time. Farewell.